I've decided to continue our series of videos on Christianity. It's been several months since the last installment, so let's briefly recall where we left off. In the previous video, I explored the nature of God's love. The central idea was this: everything God does is rooted in love. Even suffering, and even death, are not signs of His absence, but expressions of His love. And in response, when we suffer or face death, we too express our love for God. In fact, I believe that suffering and death are among God's greatest gifts to humanity. Our failure to see them as such is not a failure of the world, but a reflection of our own selfishness and pride. To me, death represents the ultimate acceptance of existence as it truly is. Throughout our lives, we struggle to live in harmony with the natural order. But in death, we no longer resist. We surrender entirely to the course of nature and the will of God. In that surrender, death becomes our highest act of trust, humility, and love. In the beginning, God created paradise, a perfect existence free from suffering, corruption, and death. Humanity, in its original state, was not made to suffer. We were not meant to die. The world we were given was eternal, peaceful, and pure. But paradise was not a prison. It came with freedom, the freedom to choose. In the story of Adam and Eve, God offers humanity this choice. He does not force love, obedience, or trust. He simply sets the conditions for life in harmony with Him. And when Adam and Eve chose to listen to the serpent, the devil, they were not merely tricked. They were exercising their freedom. And with that choice, they rejected the life God had given and chose instead a life defined by suffering and death. God did not create suffering out of cruelty. He allowed it out of love, because He respects the freedom of His creation. The world we live in now, with all its pain and impermanence, is not the result of God's desire, but of ours. God gives to each according to their nature, and from the beginning, humanity has chosen a nature that rebels, that resists, that seeks to go its own way, even if that way leads to destruction. We may ask, who would ever choose suffering and death? But this question only reveals our ignorance. We do not understand ourselves. We do not see how deeply pride and selfishness shape our choices. God does not act according to our words or our fleeting regrets. He acts according to our actions, and our actions reveal what we truly desire. For example, we always speak how wars are evil, and how we should seek peace, but we continually engage in new wars, which means that our speaking about peace is nothing but self-deception. We speak about peace, while we engage in war to achieve it, which means that we prefer war over peace. We're just unable to see it. We are so selfish and prideful that we can't admit our faults even when we're killing each other. If Adam and Eve had chosen to remain in trust and obedience, they would have remained in paradise. But they didn't, and God, in His love, honored their choice. This is the deep meaning of the fall. God gives us exactly what we seek. And when we seek to live like the devil, through pride, rebellion, and the desire to define good and evil on our own terms, God allows us to live in a world that reflects that nature. He does not impose suffering. He simply permits us to create it for ourselves. Some may argue, it's not our fault. Adam and Eve were deceived by the devil, but this too is part of the deception. The devil cannot force us to do anything. He can only tempt, only suggest, only whisper. It is we who listen. The devil appears wherever pride is found. He requires no invitation, only an opening. Even so, God does not hate the devil. He created him, and even the devil serves a purpose in the greater harmony of creation. Without the devil, the true nature of humanity might never have been revealed, for in the presence of temptation, our deepest inclinations come to light. God never acts from dominance or tyranny. He does not punish arbitrarily. He gives freely, according to the will of His creation. He created humanity in perfection. He placed us in eternal paradise, but we could not accept it. We chose something else, and still today we continue to choose it. God does not give suffering because He delights in pain, nor because He has some secret, inscrutable plan. He gives it because it is what we seek, what we have always sought, because it matches the nature we chose for ourselves. The tragedy of our condition is not God's injustice, it is our inability to live as we were meant to live. But the door to paradise has never been locked, it is only that we have forgotten how to walk through it. The story of Jesus is profoundly sad, more than a tale of a man crucified for breaking the law. It reveals something far deeper about humanity. Here was a man who came to teach love, to urge us to help one another, to refrain from violence, and to show compassion. And what did we do? We rejected him, hated him, and ultimately crucified him. This tragedy speaks not only to an event in history, but to the very essence of our nature. The crucifixion of Jesus is not just an indictment of those who physically nailed him to the cross, it is an indictment of all of us. It shows that we do not want to help each other, that we despise love and crave violence. Jesus' teachings stand in direct opposition to our nature, and we cannot bear the confrontation. His crucifixion is not simply about breaking human laws. It symbolizes our rebellion against the ultimate law of goodness. Jesus is the Son of God, and his treatment at our hands mirrors how we treat God himself. His death was not a magical act that redeemed humanity. It was the ugliest possible representation of who we are, a species so corrupted that we murdered God's Son, who came only to help us and to lead us back to truth. Redemption does not come from the spilling of Jesus' blood, as though it had some mystical power. Redemption comes from the unfathomable love of God, who chose to forgive us despite our ultimate act of rejection and violence. The crucifixion was necessary, not because Jesus' blood had inherent power to save, but because our corruption made it inevitable. It was our nature that led to the cross, not God's requirement for blood. The cross is not our salvation, it is our shame. It stands as a monument to how far we will go to oppose God and goodness. But in the midst of this tragedy, God, in his infinite love, chose to turn this shameful event into a means of redemption. It is not the crucifixion that saves us, it is God's willingness to forgive even when we deserve nothing but condemnation. Humanity's corruption is not a flaw in God, it is entirely our fault. God's only mistake, if we can call it that, was loving us too much. It was his love that led him to create us and to give us freedom, knowing full well what we would do with it. It was his love that led him to send his Son, knowing we would reject him. And it is his love that allows us to live our ungrateful lives, even as we continue to oppose him. The crucifixion of Jesus is not a triumph in itself, it is the deepest tragedy. It reveals the depth of our depravity and the immeasurable heights of God's love. That is the heart of the gospel, and it is both heartbreaking and profoundly true. This is why my pessimism is entirely focused on humanity and human existence. I do not criticize reality, suffering, or evil. These are natural. They arise from our existence. But why is it that we instinctively see something wrong with death? We never stop to consider that the problem might not be with death, but with us. Our dislike of death is, in my view, evidence of our corruption. The fact that we came to exist disrupted everything. We, with our limited perspective, have decided that suffering and death are bad, but this judgment is the pinnacle of arrogance. Who are we to look at the universe, to look at God, and complain that suffering exists? The only reason we perceive suffering as negative is because of our depraved existence. If we could free ourselves from this ignorance, we would instead praise God for allowing suffering, for it has a purpose beyond our comprehension. Christ's crucifixion is not confined to a single moment in time. It happens every day through our lack of understanding and persistent opposition to his teachings. We are incapable of fully embodying the teachings of Jesus. Even those who grasp the depth of his message cannot live by it completely. Our inherent corruption and selfishness make it impossible. This is why faith and God's forgiveness are indispensable. We cannot live by God's rules in this life, but when we die, we become the vessels of God's will. This is the profound reason why Christianity has embraced asceticism throughout its history. Asceticism is a kind of death while still alive. It involves renouncing the world and its empty promises, abandoning the meaningless pursuits of earthly achievements, and striving to avoid corruption by turning away from life as it is. In asceticism, we confront the ultimate truth that everything is fleeting, and in the face of death, all worldly efforts are futile. As the Bible declares, "For you are dust, and to dust you shall return." I have embraced Christian teachings because they present the truest understanding of the world. They recognize humanity as both God's greatest creation and the greatest mistake. Hell exists for us and us alone, for no other creature. In my personal opinion, not one of us deserves salvation. We all deserve eternal damnation. Were God to share my perspective, we would suffer in hellfire forever, and this punishment would be just. What hellfire and eternal suffering might look like is beyond my full comprehension, but I have an idea. To me, eternal suffering would resemble life on earth as it is now, endless striving, endless selfishness, endless pain, repeated forever. This is why the concept of transhumanism, humanity's pursuit of eternal life through technology, seems utterly horrifying to me. The idea of living forever, whether through technological advancements or by uploading our consciousness into a virtual reality, represents the ultimate form of hell. In such a hypothetical scenario, where we exist eternally in a false, man-made world, we would spend our endless days in selfish pursuits, consumed by suffering, ignorant of the truth, and cut off from the natural order of things. We would be alienated from the roots from which we were created and, most devastatingly, separated from God. This separation from God, living in ignorance, surrounded by falsehood, and shielded from the truth, defines hell itself. The fact that some people long for such a reality reveals how profoundly lost humanity has become. The pursuit of eternal life in this corrupted world is a testament to our blindness. Instead of recognizing the inherent futility of our earthly existence and turning toward God, we grasp at illusions of permanence, deepening our separation from Him and from the truth. This is the ultimate tragedy, and it is a reflection of the hell we are already living in, one we risk perpetuating endlessly if we continue down this path. All the evil in the world exists within the sphere of human existence. It is born from our ignorance, an ignorance so profound that it defines our very being. Our existence is a state of falsehood, of delusion. This is a tragic paradox, because even when you recognize that you live in ignorance, you cannot escape it. Ignorance is so deeply ingrained that it feels easier, more natural, to cling to it than to see through it. It is easier to complain about suffering, easier to externalize evil as something imposed on us by the universe. But it is far harder to face the reality that we deserve suffering and death, and that all evil in the world is nothing more than the manifestation of our existence in delusion. The simplest questions can reveal this truth, but no one asks them because we fear the answers. We do not want to know that we are the problem. We do not want to admit that our very existence is the root of evil. This realization can only be reached to a deeply pessimistic outlook. I could not see it myself until I embraced the idea that our existence is the worst thing to happen, not just to us, but to the world around us. To reach this understanding, the greatest obstacle is pride. Pride is the root of all sin and the foundation of our delusion. Pride leads us to selfishness, to believing that we are superior to others, that we deserve more than we have. But pride is not limited to arrogance or entitlement. It is deeper than that. Pride is the very act of believing you have the right to an opinion. Pride is speaking to another person and believing you have the right to be heard. This fundamental pride is present in all of us, and even the humblest among us cannot fully escape it. What we have is not merely pride, it is arrogance on a colossal scale. Even the least prideful human being is selfish, and most of us go far beyond mere pride into complete self-obsession. This arrogance blinds us to the truth. Our existence itself is the greatest tragedy, the ultimate source of suffering and evil in the world. Recognizing this requires humility, the willingness to surrender the illusion of control and accept the stark reality of our fallen nature. You will never understand what is wrong with human existence unless you start with yourself. It is our nature to point fingers at others, to criticize their actions, their failures, and their sins. But the moment critique is directed at us, we recoil. We avoid it, we justify ourselves, and we deceive not only others, but also ourselves. This self-deception is not accidental, it is fundamental. It is self-preservation, the cornerstone of our ignorance and the fuel for our false existence. Without this constant deception, we could not bear to face the truth about ourselves. To break through this illusion, you must come to see yourself as the lowest, the most depraved, the most sinful of all human beings. You must realize that you are at the very bottom of the pit when it comes to goodness and value. This is the essence of humility, understanding your utter lack of worthiness, and recognizing that you are the source of all that is wrong with the world. It is only when you reach the bottom of the pit that you can finally see where you are, trapped in the darkness that you and all of humanity have been digging since the beginning of existence. But here is the tragedy. Most of us do not even realize that we are in the pit. We live in a state of blindness, floating above the ground on a delusional sense of self-worth, all the while continuing to dig the pit deeper. Every day we deceive ourselves into believing that we are climbing upward, that we are better, more moral, more enlightened. But in truth, we are sinking further into darkness, pulling ourselves and others deeper into the abyss. As long as you deceive yourself about your own depravity, you will never truly see the depravity of others. As long as you cling to your self-deception, you will remain blind to the truth. This is the nature of deception. It hides not only the truth of the world, but also the truth of your own soul. If you could stop deceiving yourself, if humanity as a whole could stop, there would be no more evil. But we cannot stop. We are incapable. Deception is the lifeblood of our existence, and it is precisely this that gives rise to evil. Evil does not exist on its own. It is not some external force imposed on us by reality, or by God. Evil is falsehood, non-existence, the opposite of truth and being. It is the devil, and every day we are feeding him. I am feeding him, you are feeding him. Even when we want to stop, we cannot. This is the tragic reality of human nature. We are bound to sin, bound to falsehood, bound to evil. Instead of using our lives to honor God, to align ourselves with His love and kindness, we squander the gift of life. We take the energy and vitality that God has given us, and we channel it directly into the hands of demons. And these are the same demons, fallen angels, who were cast out of paradise for opposing God. And why were they expelled? For the same reason humanity did, for the belief in the devil's lie that they could be like God. Humanity manifests this truth in our acquisition of knowledge. But knowledge, by itself, is not the problem. The problem lies in how we use it. Only God knows how to use knowledge in a way that aligns with truth and love. When humanity wields knowledge, it becomes a weapon. We use it to dominate, to destroy, to kill. We build nuclear weapons, not out of necessity, but out of selfishness and fear. And in doing so, we reveal the depth of our stupidity, even as we pride ourselves on our intellect. This, in my view, is the purest reflection of human intellect, the creation of tools for destruction, the misuse of God's gifts, and the arrogance to believe that we can wield knowledge as He does. We are creatures of ignorance, blind to our own faults, and this blindness leads us to believe that we can ascend to the heights of God while we sink further into the pit. It is a cycle of self-destruction, one that will continue as long as we cling to pride, deception, and the delusion of our own greatness. People are always wrong. There are no true sides in any conflict, only the illusion of sides. We love to divide ourselves, to point at others and claim they are wrong while convincing ourselves we are right. But over time, I've come to understand something deeper. Both sides are always wrong. Wherever there are humans, there is error. It's not just occasional. It's constant. We are always wrong. Conflict is inevitable, not because we believe others are mistaken, but because we believe we ourselves are right. The true problem is not in the other side. It is within us. It is in our pride, our hubris, our desperate need to be right, and the truth is, we are never right. Only when we fully accept that we are wrong, completely wrong, in everything, can we begin to come into alignment with the truth. This acceptance isn't defeat. It's liberation, because truth is not something we possess, but something we submit to. And the only way to do that is by recognizing the limits of our understanding, by embracing our ignorance. All wars would end if both sides said not, "You are wrong," but "We are wrong." We must stop. When both sides understand they are wrong, they lose the will to fight. The very goal of the conflict dissolves, but this is nearly impossible for us. Our greatest problem is our opinions, our belief in them. They are never right, yet we are trapped in the delusion that we know something important, something worth defending. What we think we are preserving is often what is destroying us. This is the ignorance Plato warned us about when he said that evil comes from ignorance, and to be truly rational is to seek the good. People often misread Plato, thinking that when he calls ignorance the source of evil, he is talking only about the uneducated. They point to figures like Hitler or Stalin as proof that evil can arise from reason, but Plato would not call this reason. That, too, is a form of ignorance. For Plato, reason is not simply the ability to calculate, to solve problems, or to wield vast knowledge. True reason is only present when it aligns with the good, with the natural order, with God. Knowledge used for evil is not true knowledge at all. It is counterfeit, and it is rooted in ignorance. Christianity echoes this insight. It teaches that our very nature is steeped in this kind of ignorance, not because we lack knowledge, but precisely because we possess it. Our pride blinds us. The more knowledge we acquire, the more ignorant we become, because we use it to oppose what is higher than us. We believe we know better than God, better than nature, better than all other living beings. We imagine that it's up to us to decide the direction of the world. But this is the very delusion of the devil, the belief that he could replace God, that he knows best. His fall did not come from a lack of intelligence, but from arrogance. His pride convinced him that he was separate from God. This is his ignorance, not a physical separation, but in mind and soul. In the true reality, the noetic realm, the realm of mind and soul, this separation is an illusion, yet it is the root of all evil. To return to truth is not to conquer, but to surrender, not to proclaim, "I am right," but to recognize, "I am wrong." Only then can we find peace. The devil's fall began with pride, with the belief that he could stand apart from God. But this separation is not just rebellion. It is the greatest form of ignorance, for to harm God is to harm oneself. God is not some distant being. He is the foundation of all existence. To separate oneself from God is to be torn from one's own being. To oppose God is, ultimately, to oppose life itself. When we believe we know better than God, no matter how much knowledge we claim to have, we are trapped in both arrogance and ignorance. We question the suffering of the world. We see death and decay and believe the world is flawed. So, in our pride, we dream of replacing it. We imagine building artificial worlds, digital heavens inside machines where we can live forever, untouched by pain, untouched by nature. But this is the devil's dream. It is the ancient delusion, the belief that we can surpass the Creator, that we can rule in His place. Just like the devil, we try to dethrone God, not realizing that by doing so, we destroy ourselves. For the order God created is not alien to us. It is the very structure of our being. To go against God is to go against ourselves. To harm nature is to harm ourselves, because we are nature. We are not separate from the world. We are born of it, shaped by it, sustained through it. Without nature, there is no humanity. To harm another person is to harm yourself. We live in a web of relationships, a shared existence. Society makes this visible. We survive by helping one another. We give to the community, and in return we receive. But even deeper than social structures is the order of nature, and deeper still is our unity through God. To harm a person is not just to harm society or nature, it is to harm God. This is why Jesus, when asked about the greatest commandment, answered with perfect clarity. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like unto it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. These are not two separate commandments. They are one truth, expressed in two directions. To love God is to love your neighbor. To love your neighbor is to love yourself, and to love is to live in harmony with what is. All opposition, all rebellion, all pride, these are forms of blindness. They separate us from truth, from nature, from others, and from God. To return to God is to return to oneself. Our greatest mistake is not merely in trying to silence those who oppose us. It lies deeper, at the very root of our thinking. The true error is in having the opinion in the first place and believing it to be right. This is the core of human delusion, the belief that we are capable of being right. But we are not. We are far too arrogant to ever be right about anything. Our opinions are not wisdom. They are expressions of pride. The devil does not come to us as a horned figure in the shadows. That image is symbolic, but ultimately meaningless if taken literally. The true nature of the devil is far more pervasive and far more dangerous. He manifests in human behavior, our pride, our arrogance, our endless belief in our own correctness. The fundamentalist idea that the devil is something outside of us, something other, is itself a trick of the devil. It allows us to justify our evils by pretending that we are separate from the source of them, but the devil is not within you or within me. He is all pride and arrogance that has ever existed, and whenever we act through pride, we align ourselves with him. The devil is not confined to one place. He is everywhere. He lives in every act that goes against God and the natural order. And we must stop pretending that we are innocent. We are not. Every single one of us, in some way, is in league with the devil, not through ritual or belief, but through action, through attitude, through the pride that governs our daily lives. Church is not a shelter from the devil. In fact, it is one of his favorite places. Because when Christians deceive themselves into thinking that reciting a prayer will shield them, while continuing to act through pride and selfishness, they create the perfect ground for his work. The devil does not fear prayer. He fears humility, but rarely do we leave church with less arrogance than we entered. We pray, and then we go home and lie, cheat, and fight. We battle with our co-workers, resent our neighbors, and wound our loved ones. The devil follows us everywhere because he is everywhere, in every thought that separates us from truth, in every impulse that opposes the good. And yet, the devil himself is blind. He does not realize that he is sabotaging his own being. For in opposing God, the source of all being, he undermines the very foundation of his own existence, and so do we. To oppose God is to oppose reality. To oppose the natural order is to oppose ourselves. True life begins when we submit, not in servitude, but in alignment, with the order that sustains all things. We must accept our deficiencies. We are not wise. We are not advanced. We are not intelligent. We are, in fact, the most foolish creature on earth. We call ourselves intelligent because we can invent, analyze, and manipulate, but what do we really do? We create problems faster than we solve them. We multiply complexity, conflict, and confusion, until we drown in our own creations. Compare this to an animal. A bear, for instance. A bear solves his problems. He eats, sleeps, nurtures his young, and lives in harmony with his surroundings. He does not destroy the forest to build a smarter cave. He does not invent things to compensate for the things he has broken. In this way, the bear is far more intelligent than we are. He lives in balance. We live in defiance. True intelligence is not the ability to invent endlessly. True intelligence is knowing when not to invent. It is restraint. It is wisdom. It is living in harmony with what is, not constantly trying to replace it. Our intellect, left unchecked, becomes our downfall. It turns into a weapon against nature, against others, and ultimately against ourselves. In this way, our intelligence becomes our stupidity. In my opinion, St. Augustine is the greatest Christian theologian, and his philosophy strongly influenced my view of Christianity. One of his most significant contributions is the notion of original sin, a profound recognition of human corruption and our fallen nature. For him, the original sin, committed by Adam and Eve, had far-reaching consequences, transforming human nature and enfeebling the will. Augustine argued that sin is transmitted through concupiscence, or hurtful desire, a term he used metaphysically rather than psychologically. Concupiscence is not a substance or being, but a privation of good, a wound in human nature. It represents the disobedience of human desires to the will, mirroring the disobedience of the first humans to God's will. In Augustine's realism, all humanity was present in Adam when he sinned, meaning that his guilt is inherited by all his descendants. This collective inheritance of guilt renders humanity a mossa diameter, a mass of perdition. However, Augustine was clear that original sin, while enfeebling human freedom, does not destroy it entirely. Humans retain the capacity for moral choice, though it is deeply impaired and requires divine grace for true righteousness. The struggle against Pelagianism shaped Augustine's emphasis on the necessity of grace. Pelagius and his followers, including Celestius and Julian of Aclana, denied that original sin fundamentally wounded human nature. They argued that humans retain their inherent moral capacity, and that sin arises from individual actions rather than an inherited condition. Augustine, in contrast, insisted that without divine grace, humans are incapable of achieving true goodness. Grace is not merely an aid to the will, but is irresistible, transforming and enabling the human soul to overcome its fallen state. Augustine's understanding of grace reflects his belief in humanity's utter depravity due to original sin. Only through God's grace, which leads to conversion and perseverance, can humans attain salvation. This emphasis on grace underscores Augustine's conviction that human efforts alone are insufficient for redemption. Divine intervention is essential. For Augustine, the consequences of original sin extend beyond individual moral failings to encompass the entire human experience. The body, once perfectly obedient to the soul, now resists its commands, mirroring the soul's rebellion against God. Yet, Augustine did not devalue the body or the material world. He saw them as creations of divine love, imbued with meaning and purpose. In Augustine's vision, the ultimate goal of human life is union with God, achieved through the proper ordering of love. The disordered loves that result from original sin must be reoriented through divine grace. This reordering brings the soul into harmony with God's will, restoring the unity of body and soul to its intended purpose. For Augustine, God orchestrates all things with divine wisdom while preserving human freedom. Initially, Augustine believed that predestination depended on God's foreknowledge of human faith, viewing grace as a reward for human assent. However, in later works, particularly in response to Pelagianism, he emphasized that pride lies in assuming humans choose God or that God's choice depends on any inherent worth in individuals. Instead, he argued that it is solely God's grace that inspires the act of faith. If there is any hope, it lies not in us, but in God's mercy, a mercy we cannot earn, and a grace we can only receive by surrendering our pride and admitting the depth of our fallenness. But to do that, we must first see the truth about ourselves, and that is the most difficult task of all. It is not that we are deceived by illusions. We are the illusion itself. This illusion must be destroyed at the end of times. People often say that we are our souls, that the soul is given by God, and through it, God sustains us and gives us life. They speak of the ego as a false self, an illusion that prevents us from seeing the purity of our souls. But I believe this is mistaken. We are not our souls. We are the ego. We are falsehood. We live in falsehood, and we are falsehood. The soul is a part of God, but we are detached even from our souls. We identify not with the soul, but with the illusion. We are the illusion. The soul belongs to God, but we reject it. I have realized that I, too, am falsehood. People talk about awakening as if it is a realization that their soul is their true being. But I despise the word awakening because I know it is impossible. True awakening is when you realize that you can't escape from falsehood. Awakening doesn't exist, because it is by itself nothing more than another self-deception. Even when we come to know that the soul is our pure being, we reject it. We are evil, ignorant, and self-deceiving. We are the illusion that prevents us from accepting God's love. We are everything that is wrong. If we could fully realize that we are our souls, created and sustained by the loving and perfect God, we would live in paradise. This is what God wanted for us. He gave us everything we need to achieve it, but there is one crucial ingredient that we are unable to accept and use properly, and this is freedom. God gave us freedom, the ability to choose. And with this freedom, we always choose to turn away from goodness, to turn away from God. We are not on God's side. We are on the side of the devil. We willingly dedicate our lives to the devil, even as he deceives us, robs us of everything, and mocks us for our stupidity. We reject the love of God, who gives us everything and asks nothing in return. Instead, we show gratitude to the devil, who hates us and takes everything away. Yet, in his boundless love, God will destroy everything we have built in our depraved, inverted world. He will bind the beast we have been feeding with our lives and cast it into the lake of fire. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone. Revelation 19 verse 20. God will reveal our delusions and obliterate everything created from our ignorance, for all our knowledge, all our achievements, are an abomination in the eyes of the Lord. Why? Because everything we do is rooted in self-deception and our refusal of goodness. We have worshipped Satan our entire lives, even while pretending to worship God. But God, in his infinite mercy, will bring an end to all of this. He will strip away our illusions, destroy our falsehoods, and bring us face to face with the reality we have rejected. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night for ever and ever. This depraved existence cannot be sustained. Just as every individual must face death, so too must the corrupt world we have created perish. It is a natural consequence of our actions, a reflection of the state of humanity. The imagery of destruction in the book of Revelation is not arbitrary. It is a revelation of the truth about us. Our depraved lives, filled with pride, selfishness, and opposition to God, will culminate in depravity and destruction. We are all the Antichrist. Every human being opposes God, and the Antichrist is not a single, mythical individual, but rather a shape that humanity itself takes in rebellion against the divine. This opposition is evident everywhere, within governments, the church, and every human institution. The 5 references to Antichrist or Antichrist in the Johannine epistles do not clearly point to a single, future individual. Instead, the terms the deceiver or the Antichrist describe a category of people, those who act in opposition to God. And, in my opinion, that includes every human being on this planet. Children, it is the last hour. As you have heard that Antichrist is coming, so now many Antichrists have come. From this we know that it is the last hour. 1 John 2 verse 18. Who is the liar but the one who denies that Jesus is the Christ? This is the Antichrist, the one who denies the Father and the Son. By this you know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God, and every spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God. And this is the spirit of the Antichrist, of which you have heard that it is coming, and now it is already in the world. Many deceivers have gone out into the world, those who do not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh. Any such person is the deceiver and the Antichrist. It is evident that these passages we just saw explain the spirit of Antichrist and multiple people being Antichrists, which supports my theory that Antichrist is not an individual, it is humanity itself. It is my opinion that this belief in individual Antichrist is another human selfish self-deception. No one wants to admit that we are the Antichrist. Humanity is the Antichrist. The way we live is the Antichrist. The entire world and the way we exist is the Antichrist. It is living in opposition to the teachings of Jesus Christ, in which we all participate in every day. Consequently, attention for an individual Antichrist figure focuses on the 2nd chapter of 2 Thessalonians. However, the term Antichrist is never used in this passage. As to the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our being gathered together to him, we beg you, brothers and sisters, not to be quickly shaken in mind or alarmed, either by spirit or by word or by letter, as though from us, to the effect that the day of the Lord is already here. Let no one deceive you in any way, for that day will not come unless the rebellion comes first and the lawless one is revealed, the one destined for destruction. He opposes and exalts himself above every so-called God or object of worship, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God, declaring himself to be God. 2 Thessalonians 2 verses 1-4. For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work, but only until the one who now restrains it is removed. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord Jesus will destroy with the breath of his mouth, annihilating him by the manifestation of his coming. The coming of the lawless one is apparent in the working of Satan, who uses all power, signs, lying wonders, and every kind of wicked deception for those who are perishing, because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. 2 Thessalonians 2 verses 7-10. The latter of these passages is also the primary scriptural source concerning the Catechon, the one who now restrains the coming of the Antichrist. The identity of this person, if it is a person, is mysterious and the subject of debate. Although the word Antichrist, Greek Antichristos, is used only in the epistles of John, the similar word pseudochrist, Greek pseudochristos, meaning false messiah, is used by Jesus in the Gospels. 4 false messiahs and false prophets will appear and produce great signs and omens, to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. Matthew 24 verse 24 and Mark 13 verse 22. What is ironic is how Christians worldwide search for and await an Antichrist, pointing fingers at others, accusing them of being in opposition to God. In doing so, they fail to see that this very act of pride is the hallmark of the Antichrist. The devil has deceived us all, and he mocks our stupidity, how blind we are, accusing others while remaining ignorant of our own role in this opposition. Origen, 185-254, refuted Celsus' view of the Antichrist. Origen, using scriptural citations from Daniel, Paul, and the Gospels, argued, "Where is the absurdity, then, in holding that there exist among men, so to speak, 2 extremes, the one of virtue and the other of its opposite, so that the perfection of virtue dwells in the man who realizes the ideal given in Jesus, from whom there flowed to the human race so great a conversion and healing and amelioration, while the opposite extreme is in the man who embodies the notion of him that is named Antichrist. One of these extremes, and the best of the two, should be styled the Son of God, on account of his preeminence, and the other, who is diametrically opposite, be termed the son of the wicked demon, and of Satan, and of the devil. And, in the next place, since evil is specially characterized by its diffusion, and attains its greatest height when it simulates the appearance of the good, for that reason are signs, and marvels, and lying miracles found to accompany evil, through the cooperation of its father the devil. I came to realize long ago that I am in league with the devil, no matter how much I try to resist. The devil laughs at my foolishness, because even as I acknowledge his deceptions, I still succumb to them. This is the essence of being an Antichrist, recognizing the illusions yet remaining powerless to escape them. I know that for the rest of my life, the devil will continue to deceive me. Those who cannot see this truth will never understand why God wills their suffering and destruction. They will never grasp why God must one day annihilate the entire world we have created. Every action we take, every system we build, these are abominations in the eyes of the Lord. It is only through the complete destruction of this world and our false selves that we can ever hope to find reconciliation with Him. This is not a punishment imposed by God. It is the inevitable result of our choices. Yet even this revelation of our depravity is an act of God's love. He shows us our mistakes because He cannot allow us to persist in such a state. When the end comes, it will not be arbitrary or meaningless. God will make the best possible outcome from the chaos we have created, no matter how deep our corruption runs. The world we know will perish, but in that ending, harmony with God will be restored. When all that is depraved disappears, there will be no more opposition to God's goodness. And still, I wrestle with this truth. How can God love us in our corrupted state? How can He endure the unimaginable sadness of watching His creation live in such opposition to His will? Yet I believe that God's love is beyond anything we can comprehend. Even as He reveals to us the depth of our mistakes, He is working toward the restoration of all things. The book of Revelation is not a story of wrath or hopelessness. It is a story of love, of God showing us the truth we refuse to see. In the end, it is not about destruction for its own sake, but about God's ultimate act of love, fixing what is broken, healing what is wounded, and bringing creation back into perfect harmony with Himself.